The judge chuckled the moment he saw the teenager enter, draped in a suit far too large for his slender frame, clearly borrowed from a father or uncle. But that amusement, it didn't last. No one expected the boy in the oversized navy jacket to utter a single word, let alone command the room. But the way Elijah Carrington pushed open the heavy double doors of the Miller County Courthouse in Camilla, Georgia, he didn't just walk, he arrived, like someone with purpose, like someone who'd done this before. The sleeves of the suit swallowed his hands, the knot of his tie sat askew, and the battered leather briefcase he clutched had clearly passed through more than one generation. But Elijah's posture, unbent, his gaze forward, steady, unafraid. Inside, murmurs rustled through the gallery. Curious eyes followed his every step. Was he a clerk's nephew, a young paralegal, a high school intern who'd lost his way? Judge Raymond Tolbert, stern and seasoned, looked over the rims of his reading glasses. He didn't speak, at least not at first. Instead, he offered a sideways grin, that slow, simmering smirk judges reserve for moments when they believe they've already won. It was the kind of smile that suggests quiet mockery, a smile that stings more than any insult. But Elijah didn't flinch. He marched toward the defense table, placed the weathered briefcase on the polished wood, opened it with care, and removed 3 precisely stacked folders and an old, well-loved copy of the Georgia Code. He laid them out as if arranging surgical tools, methodical, deliberate. Finally, Judge Tolbert broke the silence. "You lost, son?" Elijah met his gaze, his voice unwavering. "No, sir. I'm here to represent my brother, Isaiah Carrington." The air shifted. Even the courtroom clock seemed to pause. The bailiff blinked in disbelief. The prosecutor, Andrea Lindholm, raised an eyebrow above her thick-framed glasses. A stifled laugh came from the back row, uncertain and quickly swallowed. Tolbert leaned back in his chair. "Representing, as in observing?" "No, sir," Elijah replied, lifting a notarized document. "Representing. My brother filed a motion for self-representation. Under Georgia law, he appointed me, within the lay representative provision, to act on his behalf." The smirk on Tolbert's face grew wider, dripping with disbelief. "Son, this isn't a high school debate. It's a felony hearing. Burglary, resisting arrest, possession of stolen property. You're 17. "Yes, sir." "You've no license, no legal training?" "No, sir," Elijah answered, glancing briefly toward the gallery before returning his focus to the judge. "But I've studied the law for 2 years, and I've read every document related to my brother's case. Twice." The whispers fell away. What replaced them was silence, thick, electric. The room held its breath. Tolbert sighed, slowly. "We'll see how long that confidence lasts." He turned toward the prosecutor. "Ms. Lindholm?" She adjusted her notes, clearly unsettled. "If the paperwork checks out, Your Honor, it's unconventional, but technically legal." The judge shook his head, muttering under his breath as he turned to his docket. "This is a preliminary hearing. Our only job today is to determine if there's enough substance to proceed to trial. If Mr. Carrington wants to be represented by his brother, I won't stop him." "Yes, Your Honor," Elijah said, his voice calm. He sat down unshaken. From the gallery, Isaiah Carrington watched silently, hands cuffed, orange jumpsuit creased at the collar, but his eyes glowed with quiet pride. The clerk's voice rang out, "State of Georgia versus Isaiah Carrington." The courtroom reset. Andrea Lindholm stood, crisp and confident, and launched into the charges. Burglary, resisting arrest, possession of stolen goods. "The accused," she declared, "was apprehended while fleeing a residence. Electronics were found in his car. The arresting officer positively identified him." She made no mention of the missing fingerprints, no mention of the airtight alibi, no mention of the mysterious, untraceable tip that had led to Isaiah's detainment. Tolbert nodded, too quickly. Things were moving fast. Too fast. Then Elijah rose. "Your Honor, may I cross-examine the officer?" Tolbert hesitated, surprised. "You may." Officer Paul Haskins stepped up. He was built like a linebacker, voice deep and commanding, and looked down at Elijah like the boy was a question he didn't want to answer. "State your name for the record," Elijah said. "Are you serious?" "Name, please." Tension prickled through the room. "Haskins. Paul Haskins." "And you said you saw my brother inside the vehicle with the stolen property?" "Yes. A flat screen and 2 laptops were in the back seat. I pulled him over after receiving a tip." "This tip?" Elijah asked, flipping open a folder. "Did you log it?" "No." "And you said he fled?" "He tried. I stopped him." Elijah reached into the file. "Then how do you explain this?" He held up a printed photograph. Isaiah, face down, handcuffed on the sidewalk. A timestamp showed it was taken 5 minutes before the official traffic stop occurred. The room gasped. Haskins blinked. Tolbert leaned in. "Where did that come from?" "A neighbor's Ring cam. The arrest wasn't during the stop. It happened before. That makes it an unlawful seizure." The courtroom's temperature dropped. And then it happened. The moment everything turned. Haskins stammered. I must have gotten the time wrong." Elijah didn't even blink. "So your report is inaccurate. Your body cam was off, and the anonymous tip? Unrecorded." "Mr. Carrington," Tolbert interjected, tone sharp. "Let's keep this respectful." Elijah nodded. "Of course, Your Honor. Just trying to get to the truth." And now no one laughed. No one whispered. No one underestimated the boy in the baggy suit. From the defense table, Elijah lifted another folder. "I'd also like to submit a sworn statement from Mrs. Wanda Freeman, the homeowner in question." Tolbert took the paper, skeptical. "You had her sign this?" "Yes, sir, yesterday afternoon." "And what does she claim?" "That nothing was missing. Her television was untouched. Her door? Locked. No signs of a break-in. She never even saw Isaiah. She only heard someone had been arrested in relation to her home from the newspaper." Lindholm stood up abruptly. "Your Honor, this wasn't submitted in discovery." "Because," Elijah said, not missing a beat, "she was never interviewed. I found her myself." Tolbert arched an eyebrow. "How did you convince her to talk?" Elijah shrugged softly. "I asked, politely." This time laughter rippled, but it wasn't mockery. It was admiration. Tolbert scanned the document. "And she confirms Isaiah never entered the house?" "Correct, Your Honor." In the back, the doors open. Mr. Clean, the town's unofficial courtroom regular, slipped in with his notepad. "What's going on?" he whispered. "Some kid's defending his brother," someone replied. "And he's winning." Earlier that morning outside the courthouse, Elijah had stood beside his brother's former attorney, Dwayne Carter. They stood near the rusted bike rack, not far from the courthouse steps. Carter had looked at him, doubtful. "You can't do this, kid. Court's not a classroom." "I know," Elijah replied quietly. "But you don't believe him." "I do. Belief doesn't win trials." "No," Elijah agreed, "but the truth might." Carter had scoffed, muttered something about too many movies, and walked away. But now in that courtroom, Elijah delivered. Every late night spent at the Camilla Public Library. Every grainy law lecture played on a cracked iPhone. Every worn legal volume bought for $5 from the secondhand shop in Albany. It had led to this moment. He had no law degree, but he had the truth. He had no legal pedigree, but he had conviction. Judge Tolbert cleared his throat. "Let me get this straight," he said slowly. "The arresting officer's timeline is off. The alleged victim says nothing was stolen, and there's no evidence of a break-in." "That's correct, Your Honor." "And you uncovered all of this on your own?" Elijah looked once more at Isaiah, then back at the judge. I had to. No one else would. A heavy silence followed. Tolbert leaned back, not smirking this time, but thoughtful. You said you're 17? Yes, sir. The judge exhaled through his nose. Then, with the weight of the entire room hanging on his words, he said, well, thus far you're more prepared than half the licensed attorneys who appear in front of me. Gasps, murmurs. Lindholm crossed her arms. She wasn't smiling anymore. Elijah kept his face still, but inside his heart thundered, not with fear, with focus. He gathered his papers, stacked them neatly, and leaned toward his brother. You okay? He whispered. Isaiah nodded, eyes shimmering. You're doing better than I ever imagined. Elijah's lips twitched, just slightly. They thought the suit was the whole story, he whispered, but they haven't seen anything yet. When he stood again for his next round of questioning, the room didn't see a teenager anymore. They saw a force, and he was just getting started. He turned back to Officer Haskins. Officer, Elijah said, steady as ever, you testified that you found 2 laptops in the vehicle. Do you have the serial numbers of those items? No, Haskins replied. They were logged after the fact. By who? Elijah asked. Property Division, Haskins said. Can you confirm they were reported stolen? Elijah pressed. I believe so. You believe? Elijah raised an eyebrow. Haskins hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. Well, that's what I was told. Elijah stepped aside and picked up another paper from his stack. Because according to this report, he held it up. From the electronics store 3 blocks from my house, those same laptops were purchased 2 days before the arrest by my brother. Using his own debit card, he raised the receipt high enough for the court to see. Haskins stared at it, speechless. Lindholm shot to her feet. Objection, Your Honor. This was not disclosed during discovery. You didn't ask, Elijah replied coldly, meeting her glare. Because you assumed he was guilty. Judge Tolbert raised a hand. Let me see the document. Elijah walked it over. Calm, focused, steady. Tolbert took the paper, adjusted his glasses, and read. His face revealed nothing, but something flickered behind his eyes, something shifting. Lindholm slowly sank back into her chair. From the 3rd row, a quiet whisper drifted out like a spark. That boy came with receipts. But Elijah wasn't done. I'd like to call my next witness, he said, voice clear. A man named Travis Dent. From the back of the room, a man stood. Mid-30s, rough hands, goatee, a faded mechanic's shirt, and worn work boots. He raised a hand and walked forward. Tolbert frowned. Was this witness disclosed? No, sir, Elijah said. But he's relevant. I can explain. Tolbert sighed. Make it quick. Elijah turned to Travis. Can you tell the court your relationship to Officer Haskins? Travis shifted on the stand. He's my cousin. And did he speak to you the night Isaiah Carrington was arrested? Yes. What did he say? Lindholm stood again. Objection. Hearsay. This goes to motive, Your Honor, Elijah countered. Let me finish. Tolbert nodded. I'll allow it. For now. Travis cleared his throat. He said he finally got him. Said he was tired of seeing those Carrington boys walking around like they owned the place. Said Isaiah thought he was slick with the system, but wasn't smart enough to beat a uniform. Gasps erupted. Audible, sharp. Tolbert's expression darkened. Lindholm scribbled furiously. Elijah stepped closer to the witness stand. His voice lowered. Did he say anything about setting Isaiah up? Travis swallowed. He said, one anonymous call is all it takes in this town.